The triggered brain doesn't know the difference between a bear who's there trying to eat you and a park ranger who's coming to check on you and make sure you're safe. That's the reality of the power of the fight or flight response. And that's what today's video is going to be all about. If you have ever found yourself in a normal, casual conversation with your partner and all of a sudden it goes from 0 to 100, that's the fight or flight response that made things go from bad to worse. That's what I'm here to help you with today. It's a very normal, common dynamic, and yet it can be incredibly dangerous for relationship health, even though paradoxically, the fight or flight response is in your brain to keep you alive as a human being, but it also can be toxic for relationships if people don't learn how to manage when those warning signs go off. Let me explain how this happens. So, in a dark tent, when you hear breaking branches, you don't know if it's the park ranger who's just like going around the campsites or if it's a bear. Your brain every single time is going to assume the worst. And what does that look like? It's your heart rate is going to go up. Your breathing is going to become fast and shallow. You're probably going to start sweating. That's your body preparing to either run for the hills or like punch the bear in the face. That's the fight or flight response. And you're not alone. Every single person has the fight or flight response, the same way every single person is going to pull away if you touch a hot stove. It's an unconscious reaction, and it's part of having a brain and a body, okay? The difference is that some people know how to respond and control the fight or flight response, and some don't control it, and then it takes over. And that's when you get into trouble. My name is Laura Silverstein. I'm a couples therapist, author of Love is an Action Verb, and I use the Gottman model for couples therapy. And that's famous for what John Gottman calls the art and science of love. So today I'm going to walk you through both. The science part is the brain part, the actual anatomy of what's happening hormonally in your body with adrenaline and everything. And then the art part is how do you communicate with your partner when you're both activated so that you can resolve it in a healthy manner. I'm going to be walking you through both parts of that. Okay, so how we get triggered, why we get triggered, what happens with the brain, and what to do in your relationship when it happens in an argument, when you're not in an actual dangerous situation. We're going to start with a quick lesson in biology, neuroscience 101. Okay, if we think about the human brain, your brain has a little almond-shaped part deep inside. You can't actually see it here because it's beyond there. It's in the depths of that. It's called the amygdala. The amygdala has a very, very simple job, and its job is to scan for danger 24/7. It's like a smoke detector that never goes off duty. It's constantly scanning for danger when you're sleeping, when you're walking, when you're eating French fries. The problem is that your amygdala might prepare for danger even when you are 100% safe. Because remember, it doesn't know the difference between a bear in the woods and your partner saying, "Do you have a minute to talk?" So to the amygdala, both feel like danger. And when it sounds the alarm, the prefrontal cortex, which is here, and this is the part that's responsible for logic, empathy, good decision making, basically goes completely offline because a mammal doesn't need any of those things when it's running for its life. The blood is flowing for strength and speed, and it's trying to get as much oxygen as it can. So that's why in the heated moment of an argument, you might do or say things that you later regret. So people often recognize, okay, with fight or flight, I know I have to calm my body, I have to calm my breathing, but they don't forget that that's also cognition. You cannot control your cognition when you're in that reflex state from the amygdala. So when your cognition is impaired, that's going to cause you to continue to think that your partner is trying to hurt you. Your brain perceives your partner as a threat to your life, and it loses access to the knowledge that your partner is actually an ally who loves you and cares about you, and they're not an enemy trying to kill you. Nor is it your job to kill them before they kill you. That's what's happening at a very visceral level. So what do we do when that survival response hijacks a moment in your relationship? I'm going to walk you through that step by step. Number one is to understand it. So you're already doing number one. You are one step ahead, okay? Because then what you're trying to do is bring your conscious mind to battle with your unconscious reflexive brain, okay? So number one, recognize it's happening and know that you can't stop it quickly. This is the thing. Your body is secreting cortisol and adrenaline, and those things take 20 minutes to get out of your body. Okay, so you have to give it time. And the biggest mistake that couples make is they might be like, wait, give me a second, I'm a little flooded. And they just then maybe take a breath and they keep talking. So the biggest mistake people make is they don't give themselves enough time to not only catch their breath, but to let the adrenaline be reabsorbed into their body so that they have blood access to their prefrontal cortex. Okay, you want your blood to be normalized again and everything happening so that you can think clearly, remember that your partner loves you. So step one is recognizing it's happening and know you can't stop it quickly. So the best thing you can do is take a break and self-soothe. I have a whole video about it. I will also link that in the bottom. But so step number two, after you recognize that you're in fight or flight, is to call a timeout so that you can both self-soothe. And as you're doing that, what's happening is you are consciously trying to focus on your body, your breathing, you're focusing on de-escalation. If you don't try to control your brain will continue to go. Your brain is going to start thinking about all the ways that you're right and your partner's wrong. You're going to start thinking about all the things that you're going to say after the timeout. And what's going to happen is you're not going to use the timeout effectively to actually fight with your brain and realize that you are actually safe. Okay, this is something that they do when they're training Navy SEALs. They simulate drowning so that the people who are underwater have to fight with every bone in their body, feels like it's in danger and wants to come up for air, and they have to remember, I'm not in danger, I only feel like I'm drowning, I am okay, so that they can hold their breath longer. It's the same thing. You don't have to be doing the physical training, but you have to be doing the mental training so that you remind yourself, I'm safe and my partner is not my enemy. Because it's not enough just to soothe your body. You have to soothe the cognitive part that is slowly but surely getting the information back that it's lost. If you want more ideas about what to do during your timeout, I have a printout for you that gives you basically a whole list of ideas of what you can do with your timeout that's actually more likely that you're going to be soothing your brain and not continuing in the escalation. I'll put that in the link as well. Okay, so step one, recognize that you're in fight or flight and remember the brain chemistry. Number two, call a timeout from your partner. Step number three is when you come back and talk to your partner, this is where you figure out when everybody's calm. By the way, after 20 minutes, you might say, hey, let's talk about this tomorrow. I need to go to bed. You don't have to talk about it right there. But basically, you have a repair with your partner after you've had that fight. Now, today, I want to share with you two different options. So one option is just to say that you're sorry and, take accountability for what you said that was unkind. That's kind of the first level repair. Okay, there's a deeper level repair. If you want to learn, keep watching. If not, just really understand the first three steps. But during a deeper repair with your partner, the next step is to understand how each one of you are triggered. And so the way to do that is after the fight is over, you can share with your partner, you know what? When you talk to me about how I'm not very clean, and that I don't pick up after myself, that's a huge trigger for me. And then by sharing, it's a trigger for me because of something that predates the relationship. Usually when we're triggered and when our amygdala is called into action that there's danger, we go back to when we were little. Because little kids, babies will die, right? If a baby is left on a sidewalk, then they'll either die of exposure or they'll get eaten by somebody, okay? So children need adults to take care of them. So most of our triggers predate any kind of romantic relationship that we're in, because those were times, just moments, not necessarily because somebody was deliberately trying to hurt us, but just like insecurities. So maybe if one person is really sensitive about the fact that they didn't clean up after themselves, maybe they had a parent who was struggling with addiction and the house was constantly a mess, and that signified chaos for them. And they go back to that moment, right? And so they are in this fight flight of like mess is not safe. It's not just about having a clean counter. It's about safety. And if you can share that with your partner, and again, you want to be in a good, solid place of generosity to be able to have this conversation. But when you're ready to do that, then you can share, this is why that's so hard for me. This is why I go from 0 to 100. Because in your prefrontal cortex, you're an adult now, and you realize that you're not in danger when your partner expresses that they really want you to put your shoes in the shoe bin. And so if each one of you can share your triggers, and then if you listen to your partner explain how maybe you triggered them, you didn't mean to, you weren't trying to put them in danger, you were probably the park ranger trying to keep them safe. And you might also want to listen to your partner and have them share with you what some of their triggers were. What are those vulnerabilities where they go back, where they were a child and something wasn't safe for them, and that's why that got triggered. So even when you're the park ranger going to your partner to maybe comfort them, you see that they're upset and you try to comfort them, and they don't respond to you in a way that makes it seem like they're accepting your help. That's probably what's happening, which isn't your fault. And it's not their fault either, but you're only going to be able to heal this if you wait until afterwards, when everybody's calm and you have access to like this whole entire brain. You know, you want it all. And your amygdala is going to keep going and it's going to keep scanning. So this isn't going to come out, this isn't going to end, but it is something that you'll be able to manage differently and realize that the world might not be as safe as your brain is prepared for. So thanks for watching my video. Please click the like button. I hate asking people to do that, but it really does help me a lot to just get this information out to more people who are trying to have healthy, happy relationships like you. And leave a comment and let me know if this resonates or if there's more content that you want to hear from me. So thanks so much for watching.